I will never forget the way my mother looked at
The
me
city
that
looks
evening.
beautiful from
The
up here,
country
doesn't
club's
it?
ballroom smelled of roasted lamb and expensive wine, the kind of air that makes you feel like you should whisper. My cousin Mason had just finished his MBA, and the family was gathered to celebrate. Everyone was dressed to impress flashes of sequins and sharp suits under the chandelier. I had slipped in quietly, a simple navy dress, nothing extravagant, nothing that screamed money. When I reached for a chair at the long table near the stage, my mother's hand stopped me. She gave a little laugh, the kind that pricks like a needle. Only successful people sit up front, she said, voice carrying farther than she meant. Your seat is over there by the trash station. The words hung in the air, heavier than the smell of wine. My chest tightened. The waiter polishing glasses turned his eyes away. Mason raised his phone and laughed into his live stream. Here's my cousin, the analyst, who can't even buy a proper seat. The screen of his phone caught my face for a second, freezing humiliation into pixels. I clutched my leather folder tighter. Inside was a contract evidence of a deal I had just closed at the firm. My bonus alone was 2 feuilles contre $. But no one in that room knew. And I wasn't ready to tell them not yet. The evening rolled on with forced cheer, toasts, laughter, clinking crystal. I sat at the back, the air heavy with perfume and disregard. Plates of filet mignon passed before me, though my seat was so close to the kitchen doors that I smelled bleach each time they swung open. I watched them raise glasses to Mason's future, to his brilliance, to the family's pride. Not once did their eyes meet mine. Loneliness, I've learned, doesn't come only in silence. It blooms even louder among the roar of other people's joy. There I sat, invisible yet bleeding inside. When dessert plates were cleared, the bill arrived neatly folded inside a black leather folio. Mason snatched it with theatrical flair. His eyebrows jumped. 12,000, he announced, holding the paper high like a trophy. Well, let's see. Successful people can handle this, right? His eyes danced toward me. Something inside me steadied. I rose, smoothing my dress, my fingers still curled around my folder. Let the successful people pay for it, I said, my voice calm, almost gentle. Then I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, a hush fell across the ballroom, broken only by Mason's nervous laugh. For once, I hadn't played their part. But what they didn't know was that my silence held more power than their jeers. Tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. Families like this, we need to talk about them. People assume that disrespect arrives like a slap in the face, loud and unmistakable. In my family, it came as whispers, raised eyebrows, and the way conversations slid past me as if I had not spoken at all. After that graduation dinner, I went back to my apartment in the city, a modest 2-bedroom with gray walls and a view of a gas station. The mortgage took a chunk out of every paycheck, but it was mine carved out with years of 14-hour days in the office. I dropped my heels by the door and sank onto the couch. My phone buzzed. A family group message was lighting up. Mason had posted clips from his live stream. In one, my mother's voice rang clear. Only successful people sit up front. The video already had laughing emojis, hearts, and even comments from extended relatives. Mason had tagged it with number family success. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. For a moment, I considered replying with a screenshot of my bonus slip, 2 feuilles contre $, promised for closing a complex deal that week. But I didn't. I knew the pattern. If I revealed my gains, they would stretch out their hands. They always did. The next Sunday was dinner at my parents' house, a tradition carved into stone since childhood. The living room smelled of garlic bread and disappointment. My father waved me toward the couch, but never asked about my week. Conversation revolved around Mason's vision for his future startup. They praised his courage, his energy, his leadership. When I tried to chime in with news about the market or my own firm's successes, the words fell flat. My mother cut me off. That's nice, dear. But we're talking about Mason right now. Humiliation, I learned, is not always public. Sometimes it is the suffocating weight of being overlooked in your own family's living room. I sliced my lasagna in silence, listening to them laugh. Mason bragged about potential investors, although I knew from whispers at the club that he hadn't secured a single one. He leaned back, wineglass in hand, and said, Harper, you'll finally have a chance to prove yourself when you invest in me. Everyone chuckled as though it were a joke. But the look in his eyes said he meant every word. Later that night, I checked my email before bed. One message caught my attention, a forwarded thread from my uncle, though I doubt he meant for me to see it. The subject line read, Family Support Strategy. Inside were lines that turned my stomach cold. "She's easy to manage," my mother had typed. "Just guilt her. She'll cave." "She's the dumb wallet," Mason replied. "Exactly. Once she signs, we can show other investors she's committed. Then they'll follow." Dumb wallet. That was how they saw me. Not daughter, not cousin, not blood. Just a wallet with legs. I closed the laptop slowly. My apartment was quiet, but inside me something began to stir. Anger did not roar. It whispered. It whispered that perhaps silence had been my mistake all these years. The following weeks confirmed what the email had revealed. Every family interaction circled back to Mason's company. At brunch with my parents, my mother said, "It's time you stop hiding. You should support your cousin. Family helps family." At another dinner, my father tapped his fork against the glass. "Harper, think of this as your duty. Mason is the future. You've had your chance. Now lift him up." I bit my tongue, nodding politely. But my hands itched each time I opened my folder and saw the crisp papers of my bonus contract. There is a strange calm in being underestimated. They thought they were playing me. They did not realize I was already watching, already collecting, every word, every insult. One evening, Mason sent a group text with a link to a flashy promo video for his startup. I clicked play and watched him pace in front of rented office furniture, speaking of innovation, disruption, world-changing ideas. At the end, he winked into the camera and said, "With family backing, nothing can stop us." The comments from relatives poured in pride, encouragement, applause emojis. My name floated in the thread too. "Harper will take care of the first round." I stared at it until my phone dimmed. Not a question, not a request, a statement, as though my signature were already promised. But what they didn't know was that I had seen the email. I had read the words "dumb wallet," and I was not about to play that part again. The mask I wore at family dinners, smiles, polite nods, feigned indifference, was growing tighter. They believed they were squeezing me into silence. In truth, they were building the pressure for something far more dangerous. And when pressure builds long enough, it always explodes. The invitation arrived on heavy, cream-colored cardstock embossed in gold letters, "Mason's birthday celebration rooftop bar downtown." I almost laughed when I pulled it from my mailbox. Mason never missed a chance to perform. Birthdays for him were not family gatherings. They were stages, and everyone else was cast as background. Still I went. There are moments when silence is mistaken for weakness, and I was done feeding that illusion. The rooftop bar shimmered with neon light glass railings framing the skyline. A DJ spun music loud enough to rattle teeth, and trays of champagne glided between clusters of guests. Mason was in the center of coarse suit tailored too tight, grinning at his own jokes. "Harper," he shouted when he spotted me. Cameras from two of his friends swung my way. Mason never moved without documenting it. He pulled me into a side hug that felt like a chokehold. "Just the person we need. Everyone, this is my cousin, the future investor in our groundbreaking company." Laughter, applause, even a few whistles. My cheeks heated, though the night air was cold. I managed to smile. "That's an assumption, Mason." He ignored me, grabbing a microphone someone handed him. "Tonight, not only do we celebrate my birth, but we also welcome the dawn of innovation. And family, of course." He gestured toward me. "Because family always comes through." A giant screen flickered to life behind him, displaying slides from his so-called pitch deck. Graphs soared, numbers, multiplied buzzwords filled the air. But all I saw was the folder in my bag, the emails that called me dumb wallet. Halfway through, Mason's tone shifted. "Now, Harper, why don't you join me up here? Everyone knows you've done well at your little finance job. It's time to prove your loyalty. A signature from you, a small slice of your savings, and we secure the future." He held up a sleek tablet with an electronic contract ready to sign. The crowd leaned in, curious, eager for drama. Cameras hovered. My mother and father, standing near the bar, nodded with approval, as if the matter had already been decided. I walked slowly to the stage heels, clicking against the wood. My hands stayed loose at my sides, though my pulse hammered. Mason thrust the tablet toward me. "Just a million, cousin. Family helps family." Gasps. A million spoken like pocket change. I lifted the tablet, stared at the glowing lines. Then I handed it back. "Number." The rooftop seemed to exhale. Mason's grin faltered. "Come on now, don't embarrass yourself. Everyone's watching." I let my eyes sweep the crowd. "Exactly. Everyone is watching." My father stepped forward, voice sharp. "Stop being selfish, Harper. You owe this family." "Oh." The word rang like a bell. I owed them the years of quiet. The countless dinners endured the endless patience. But money number? I turned back to Mason. I won't invest, and you'd be wise not to ask again. Mason's face reddened, his bravado cracking. He tried to laugh it off, but the tension stuck. Cameras still recorded catching the awkward stumble in his speech, the way his hands shook as he fumbled the tablet. I walked off the stage, calm folder tucked under my arm. Behind me, voices rose, disbelief, irritation, mockery. My mother hissed, "You'll regret this." What they didn't know was that I already had the proof of their betrayal. In my folder lay the emails signed with their names, calling me a dumb wallet, planning how to use me. I left the rooftop with the city lights burning around me. Their laughter echoed behind, but I no longer carried its weight. Instead, I carried silence, the kind that sharpens into a blade. Thanksgiving in my family had always been loud pots, clanging cousins, shrieking television, blaring with football. But that year the noise carried a sharper edge. I arrived at my parents' home with a store-bought pumpkin pie, my contribution to the overflowing buffet. The driveway was crammed with cars, the front porch lit up like a stage. Inside, the air was heavy with roasted turkey and unspoken tension. My aunt pressed a glass of wine into my hand before I had even taken off my coat. "Smile, Harper," she said, though her eyes flicked away quickly as if unsure I deserved the command. The dining table stretched the length of the room, a patchwork of dishes and crystal. Mason naturally had claimed the head of the table beside my father. He wore a blazer a shade too bright, the kind that screams for attention, and on the chair next to him rested his laptop case like a crown jewel. As plates were passed and small talk scattered, Mason cleared his throat. "I have something special to share tonight." He pulled out the laptop, connected it to the television mounted on the wall. The screen came alive with slides his startup pitch deck polished since the rooftop fiasco. "Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends," he began pacing with a performer's flair. "This is the future. A platform that will disrupt industries, change lives, and secure our legacy." He tapped the screen, graphs soared, profits multiplied. But every great venture begins with belief, family belief. I sipped my wine, waiting. Sure enough, the next slide showed my name in bold letters, projected anchor investor Harper. Murmurs swelled around the table. My mother beamed as if she had written the slide herself. My father nodded gravely. Mason turned to me, smile gleaming. "Cousin, tonight you can show everyone your commitment. Just $1,500,000 and you're not only family, you're history in the making." A hush fell. Forks froze midair. Dozens of eyes bore into me, expectant, greedy. I set down my glass. "That slide is a lie. I never agreed to invest." Gasps cracked through the room like glass breaking. Mason laughed nervously. "Don't be shy, Harper. We all know you've done well. It's time to give back." I held his gaze. Giving back is a choice, not an obligation. My father slammed his fist against the table, rattling the silverware. "Enough. You've always been selfish. You sit on your money while the rest of us struggle. $1 million is nothing to you. Family helps family." Family helps family. The phrase felt rehearsed so many times it had lost all meaning. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against hardwood. $1 million may be nothing to you, but respect means everything to me, and you've given me none." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Mason, desperate to seize control, clicked to the next slide. But instead of a graph, the television sputtered and revealed something else, a video file mistakenly queued. The image filled the screen, Mason at a party, drink in hand, arm around a woman who was not his girlfriend. His voice slurred as he bragged, "Don't worry, I'll bleed Harper dry. Dumb wallet doesn't even know she's funding me." The room froze. Wine glasses hung suspended. My mother's face drained of color. My father coughed, trying to recover. Cousins exchanged looks. Mason lunged for the laptop, fumbling to close the file. "Technical glitch," he muttered, but the damage was done. I stood slowly, every eye on me. "There's your truth. You want my money, not my presence. You want a wallet, not a cousin. Well, you'll have neither." I walked to the door, my coat still warm from the house. Behind me, voices rose, anger, excuses, pleas. But I didn't turn back. Humiliation had always been mine to bear. Tonight, I watched it shift onto their shoulders. But what they didn't know was that this was only the beginning. My mother's 60th birthday was planned like a royal coronation. The ballroom of the downtown hotel sparkled with chandeliers, the tables draped in ivory cloth, waiters in white gloves gliding like shadows. The guest list included family colleagues, even a handful of local investors Mason had lured under the guise of a networking opportunity. I arrived on time, not early, not late. Enough to be seen, but not fussed over. My dress was simple black silk, a quiet armor. Under my arm, I carried a folder. Inside two things, a deed to my new penthouse forfeit, Kongtrier dollars, paid in full, and printed copies of those emails calling me the dumb wallet. The night began with laughter and speeches. Mason, of course, gave a toast dripping with charm. Tonight we honor the woman who raised us, who taught us generosity. And speaking of generosity, he winked, gesturing toward a projector already set up at the corner of the ballroom. I'd like to share exciting news about my company. The lights dimmed. His pitch deck appeared on the giant screen, brighter and slicker than at Thanksgiving. He strutted through buzzwords, growth charts, a vision of global domination. Then he paused dramatically. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we welcome a key investor, our very own Harper. Applause burst like firecrackers. My mother clapped hardest of all, glowing with pride, as if my name on his slide redeemed me. Mason held out his hand toward me. Cameras lifted. Investors leaned forward. I stayed seated, calm, measured. That is not true, I said. My voice carried across the ballroom, steady as stone. The applause faltered. Mason chuckled nervously. Don't be modest, cousin. Everyone knows you're on board. The paperwork's practically signed. No, I repeated louder. I rose to my feet, folder clutched tight. The only paperwork with my name on it is here. I walked to the projector. The technician hesitated but one look at my face, and he obeyed when I handed him a flash drive. The screen flickered. The pitch deck vanished. And then, line by line, the family's emails appeared. She's easy to guilt. She's just a dumb wallet. Once she signs, the rest will follow. Gasps rippled through the room. My mother's hand froze in midair. My father's jaw clenched. Mason lunged toward the technician, but the crowd was already buzzing, investors whispering, phones raised to snap pictures. I turned to face them all. This is how my family speaks about me. Not as a person, not as a daughter or cousin, but as a wallet, a resource to be drained. Tonight you all were meant to watch me humiliated into submission, but I won't play that role. From my folder, I drew the deed and held it up. The notary stamp glinted under the chandelier. While you were busy mocking me, I bought an entire floor of a building, a penthouse worth forfeit Hong Trier dollars. Mine signed sealed. No partners, no parasites. The room went silent except for the clicking of phone cameras. Mason's face drained of color, his perfect pitch crumbled to ash. I stepped closer to the microphone. You wanted proof of success, here at Island, and you wanted a dumb wallet. Find another. My mother whispered, Harper, please, this isn't the time. I looked at her, at the woman who had told me I wasn't fit to sit at her table. The time is now. I placed the deed on the podium beside the emails. Some tables are for successful people. I own the floor above all of them. The investors began to murmur, collecting their coats. One by one they slipped away, leaving Mason stranded in the glare of the projector, his face twisted rage, fighting shame. I picked up my folder, tucked it under my arm once more, and walked out of the ballroom. Behind me, the noise swelled, questions, arguments, accusations, but none of it touched me. For the first time, I felt the air clear, crisp, and free. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't done. Exposure was only step one. The real revenge had just begun. The morning after my mother's birthday, my phone would not stop buzzing. Notifications stacked like falling dominoes, texts, voicemails, tagged posts. The video of my confrontation had leaked online, clipped by one of Mason's investor friends. Within hours, it spread across Facebook, Twitter, even TikTok. The caption read, "When the wallet fights back." By noon, millions had watched my family's words displayed on that ballroom screen. People laughed, people raged, people debated. Some praised me as a symbol of standing up to greed. Others dissected every line of the emails, mocking Mason for arrogance. Hashtags trended number dumb wallet, number own the floor. I had not planned the viral storm, but I wasn't about to waste it. That afternoon, I arranged a small press briefing in the penthouse I had just purchased. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline. The deed sat on the marble counter, framed like art. When the first journalist asked how it felt to humiliate my family in public, I smiled. I did not humiliate them, I said. They humiliated themselves. I simply let the world see it. Mason tried damage control, of course. He posted a trembling video claiming the emails were taken out of context, that his words had been jokes. But context has a way of collapsing when people hear you call your cousin a dumb wallet. The investors who had once flirted with his startup now vanished overnight. By week's end, Mason's company website displayed nothing but an error page. My parents called pleading. My mother's voice cracked, begging me to issue a statement clarifying the misunderstanding. My father growled that family secrets belonged in the family. But secrets rot in the dark, and I had grown tired of the stench. So I posted again. This time it was a photograph. Me standing in the penthouse deed in one hand, glass of wine in the other. The caption: "Some tables are for successful people. I own the building." It went viral instantly. Memes sprouted pictures of folding tables taped with captions like "Reserved for successful people only," followed by my quote underneath. Teenagers wore it on t-shirts within a week. Mason, humiliated, doubled down. He stormed into the comment sections accusing me of betrayal. He tried to paint himself as the visionary undone by jealous family, but screenshots of his own words drowned him. Every time he typed, someone reposted the video of him bragging at a party about bleeding me dry. The final nail came when a journalist uncovered Mason's financial records. He had been living on borrowed credit, buying luxury cars, renting flashy offices, all on promises of future investment. Without my supposed million, his empire had no foundation. The article's headline was "Brutal MBA Graduate Crowned King of Vapor." At work, colleagues congratulated me. Some called me brave, others simply nodded with new respect. My boss pulled me aside. "Harper, you handled yourself with precision, cold precision. Remind me never to cross you." That night, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, city lights burning below. I thought of every dinner where I'd been dismissed, every insult disguised as advice, every time they told me I owed them. I breathed in the cool air. For once, the weight had shifted. But revenge is never only about exposure. It is about reclaiming space, rewriting the narrative, and I had more to say. So I wrote an essay published in a major financial magazine. I called it "The Cost of Family Loyalty." I described without names the way relatives exploit, how guilt becomes currency, how silence feeds greed. The piece resonated. Letters poured in from strangers who had been drained by kin, who had carried the burden of being the responsible one. My inbox filled with stories, each echoing my own. Mason's name was never mentioned, but everyone knew. He became a punchline, a cautionary tale. Invitations dried up. His face flushed red whenever he walked into a room. And my parents, they retreated. No more dinner invitations, no more guilt-soaked phone calls. Silence replaced their demands. The world had turned, and I had turned it. Yet as I closed my laptop that night, I wondered, was silence enough? Had I ended the cycle, or had I simply paused it? Families have a way of reinventing their demands. I promised myself that if they came again, I would be ready. Because once you've been called a dumb wallet, you never forget. And once you've fought back, you never surrender. Revenge, I discovered, doesn't end when the room goes silent. It lingers, gnaws, and reshapes, lives long after the applause fades. By the first week of winter, Mason's empire had collapsed. The luxury car he flaunted on Instagram was repossessed in front of his apartment complex. Neighbors filmed it laughing as the tow truck hauled away his shiny red dream. The video trended with the caption, "Visionary without vision." His so-called startup office closed within days. The landlord, tired of unpaid rent, locked the doors, leaving Mason's half-empty coffee mugs and motivational posters visible through the glass. Someone taped a note on the window: "Closed for lack of wallets." At family gatherings, which shrank to whispers instead of dinners, Mason was a ghost. He didn't live stream anymore. His posts disappeared. Instead, angry investors filled the void, threatening lawsuits, demanding answers. The same people he once bragged about having on speed dial now filed claims against him. My parents fared no better. The viral videos had branded them as complicit. Comments flooded their social media. "Shame on you. How could you treat your own child like that?" and worse. My mother's book club asked her not to return. My father's golf partners stopped inviting him. At the grocery store, neighbors turned away, unwilling to meet their eyes. The humiliation they once served me, spoon by spoon, now came to them in buckets. One evening, my mother called. Her voice trembled in a way I had never heard. "Harper, people don't understand. We were only trying to build a future for Mason." I let the silence stretch before I answered. You were trying to build a future with my money. There's a difference. She tried again, desperate. We can fix this. If you just... No, I said firmly. I won't rescue you. Not this time. She wept softly, then hung up. I thought of all the times I had wept alone, unseen, after dinners, where I was ridiculed, after emails, where I was reduced to a dumb wallet. Now they tasted the same loneliness. Meanwhile, strangers kept reaching out to me. My essay about family exploitation had sparked a movement of sorts. People sent letters, tweets, even handwritten notes slipped under my office door. They told me about ungrateful siblings demanding parents, cousins who leached off every success. Each story echoed mine, and each one reminded me I wasn't alone. Mason, however, was entirely alone. One night I received an email from him. The subject line read, "I'm sorry. The body was short. I messed up. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. For years he had treated me like a prop, a bank account, a punchline. Now stripped of applause, he reached for the one person who had always been there despite everything. I closed the email without replying. Some bridges once burned are better left as ashes. News spread that Mason had moved back in with my parents. His dreams of grandeur reduced to sleeping in his childhood bedroom posters peeling from the walls. The irony was sharp. The man who mocked me for buying my modest apartment was now a tenant in the same house where we once played hide and seek. Neighbors whispered. Relatives stopped visiting. The house grew quiet. For me, life moved forward. I furnished the penthouse, filled it with books, art, silence of my own choosing. I walked the balcony at night, watching the city glitter below each light, a reminder that I had built this life myself. No borrowed hands, no forced debts. Revenge had not just freed me, it had exposed them. But I knew deep down that exposure alone would not change who they were. Pride has a way of curling back, finding new disguises. Still, for the first time in years, I was not the one carrying the weight. They carried it now, every whisper, every headline, every neighbor's glance. And I did not lift a finger to ease it. Winter melted into spring, and by the time blossoms returned to the trees, I realized something important: revenge had finished its work. Mason was quiet now, stripped of his audience. My parents rarely called, and when they did, their voices carried none of the authority they once wielded. The house that used to echo with laughter and demands had become a shrine to silence. I, on the other hand, had never been freer. My penthouse felt like a fortress, not because of its height above the city, but because of the peace inside its walls. I filled the rooms with what mattered to me: plants in tall ceramic pots, shelves of books. I finally had time to read photographs of places I had traveled alone. No mocking voices, no guilt-laden dinners, no one to call me a dumb wallet. Sometimes standing at the balcony with the city glittering below, I thought about the cost. Families are supposed to protect you, not exploit you. They're supposed to lift you when you stumble, not weigh you down with chains disguised as obligations. My family had chosen greed, and I had chosen freedom. Both choices carried consequences. I don't fool myself into thinking I've won some grand victory. Life is not a scoreboard. What I did was draw a line, a boundary carved so deep they could never cross it again. That was my triumph. Not the penthouse, not the headlines, not the memes plastered across the internet, though I admit those still make me smile. The triumph was silence, mine to keep, theirs to endure. Neighbors now greet me differently. At the grocery store, strangers nod as if they know a secret. Colleagues respect me in ways they never did before. But the greatest respect comes from within. I finally respect myself enough to say no, to step away, to refuse the role they wrote for me. I sometimes wonder what Mason thinks when he wakes in his old childhood bedposters curling on the walls, car repossessed, company dissolved. Perhaps he blames me. Perhaps he blames himself. Either way, the blame is his to carry. I gave him no more excuses. My parents, I imagine, sit in that living room where I once endured their silence. Do they miss me? Do they regret the words they wrote in those emails? Or do they cling to pride, pretending they were right all along? The truth is, I may never know, and I don't need to. Because the lesson is not theirs, it's mine. Money never changes who you are. It only reveals who others were all along. Success does not make you selfish, and refusal does not make you cruel. Boundaries are not betrayal, they are survival. And survival for me looks like this: a glass of wine on my balcony, the city spread wide, the quiet hum of peace in my ears. So if you've listened this far, tell me, was my choice the right one? If you think standing firm against my family was justice, type right in the comments. But if you have a better way, A different way. I want to hear it. Because stories like mine don't end. They echo in every family that confuses love with control, loyalty with debt. And maybe, just maybe, by telling mine, I've given you permission to draw your own line.